Hello and welcome to another Mr. Betabyte video. This video is a little bit different insofar as we have another HF100, Sony of course, but this has different faults, so I like to mix it up a bit. So this was bought from eBay a while back, and it does sort of try and function, but obviously we spotted this is the back tension arm assembly, which is broken off there, and also the supply reel table is loose, which means the plastic assembly that holds the metal is cracked. And yeah, I think I did detect that possibly the mounting screws have also, or the plastics that the mounting screws go into have also cracked, but we'll check that. And hopefully it should be okay after that. Headroom wise, it's pretty good. You can see a little bit of wear, but not much. I mean, to be honest, what you're seeing is more like contamination where the tape hasn't touched. So that's really good. It's a good start. Fires up, the display's not too bad. The VU meters I think are good, but I haven't fully tested them yet because obviously I haven't run it properly yet, so I just checked it having received it. And we do have a donor deck. I don't want to glue that because there's quite a bit of force relatively that goes on that. It's sort of, you know, the pivotal force is going to be quite high, and I want this machine to last. So I do have a donor deck, which is this one here, and this has a lot wrong with it. It's really a bad deck. Already robbed it for spares. Actually got this from Bo, who bought a machine from me back in that I'd had since the early 90s, and he gave me 3 Betamax machines, which are all in a pretty sorry state, to be honest, but very useful for spares. And these have been well loved, well used, quite a bit of wear. And this one, actually, you can see there the supply reel is completely loose, so that's totally cracked off the main assembly, and it had lots of electronic faults. I mean, it could have been fixed, but it would have been a massive job, and I had so many HF100s that needed parts and servicing that yeah, in fact I think the heads are bad in this. But yeah, and things like this, the lug's broken off, which I think I detailed in another video on the HF100. But yeah, there's just lots and lots of little things that weren't great with this machine, and also the cabinet was poor, so it made sense to use it as a spares machine. So, without further ado, I suppose we better crack on. Okay, so all apart now, and I wish I sort of videoed it now, to be fair, because it was interesting that this assembly here wasn't over here. It was just floating about. So that would mean that the assembly that carries the end sensor wouldn't have been moving out of the way properly. What's also interesting is there appears to be a different type of Hall effect fitted, or somebody's bodged it. Probably thinking more along the lines of somebody's bodged it, but especially as there's a bit of distortion there. But obviously somebody's struggled to get that nut off. Not realising you can do it with a screwdriver on the other side and put a nut wrench on here. But anyway, So I'm intrigued to see what Hall effect is actually fitted, whether it is one that is a modern variant that works. Like I think I've mentioned before, I have found a Hall effect that will work, be good across the legs, and it's just really messy and horrible. I would love just a straight replacement. I mean, I've got loads of Sony ones, so it isn't really a major issue for me. Not yet, anyway. But moving forward, I would like to know how to replace these with a modern sort of equivalent. So we'll have a look at that. So moving over to the real table side of things, this is indeed cracked. This is common problem. So what I tend to do is just flood all around here with super glue gel. No, it's not ideal, but I pull this back, try and get it in the cracks and in all the joins, push it back, let it set. And to be honest, I've not had any problems. I've had machines that have been running for a good 18 months with daily use, and they've been fine. So I assume it's probably a worthy fix. Obviously I have to change this arm, which is actually really pretty straightforward, as you can see. I've unclipped the back tension. It's fairly easy, just push those two tabs together until it pops off. It means you don't just have to disturb the back tension, but of course I check the back tension anyway on all the machines when they're sort of finished, just to make sure they're okay. I have to say, 9 times out of 10, it doesn't need adjustment. Sony's tend to be pretty good, and they seem to last as well. Back tension bands are very good. So for now, of course these machines are getting old now. Motor is good. No nasty bearings. Idler seems good. A little bit grubby maybe, but it's fine. I'm not worry about that. So I suppose the next thing is to change this. I have my donor. So it's relatively straightforward to do. Just literally undo the clip on both and swap them over. And these parts here that I thought might be broken, you can see the other one there, they're actually totally solid. There's very little plastic cracking. There's a little bit of plastic cracked there, which means nothing really. These are good. So my thinking is probably the screws weren't done up very tight or totally flush for whatever reason. Probably something to do with this thrown together. Somebody had a look, gave up, I don't know. But yeah, that's that very slight amount of play I think I was feeling was just purely from these screws not being tightened properly. They were quite loose when they came out, relatively fairly. So yeah, cool. So I'll get swapping stuff over, and I'll glue this. I'll do this first, get this glued, and yeah, we'll take it from there. The other thing, incidentally, while I think about it, are these bearings. I don't like these bearings. I much prefer the metal bearings, metal in metal enclosure rather than metal in plastic enclosure. They're just better, and I mean, there's only four bearings there. I'm sure the other ones have 6. Metal in metal, the earlier ones, but I suppose it doesn't make any difference, but I just feel it's more refined when you've got the older style of bearing, just as a deck. And I do find, I mean, I run these with some silicone grease in just to make the wheels really smooth, but these just don't really come up as well as the metallized ones. So don't know, be interested in your thoughts on that, to be honest. does it really make much of a difference? I mean, I suppose with enough grease it doesn't, but I don't know. Yeah, let me know in the comments. So that's all glued and drying nicely. Also put the new arm on, and that's fine. I haven't put the clip on yet. Just notice that. Where is it? There it is. It's a miniature version of the usual Sony style of clip. Works really well until you lose it. And while I was waiting, I thought I'd just strengthen up the rear sockets, because they do tend to sort of crack and give way. So unlike the previous video, I've actually used solid wire on this, and I do find this works really well. Just keeps it nice and tight and working, basically, giving them a good clean as well. So looking really nice. So once this is fully dried, and I'll leave this overnight, even though it's super glue, it will sort of vent. You'll get that sort of smearing going on that you get with super glue. So I just let that sort of happen before I put everything back together, and then we'll look at the rest of it. I'll change the two Sony capacitors just because, well, we all know they are causing problems on these machines now, and we'll check for the usual board browning and take it from there. One thing that's a bit odd with this machine, it does look as if it's had a whole new power supply or replacement power supply unit, because this power supply unit is actually really very badly pitted, and which is a bit odd because the rest of it is actually okay. But what is odd as well is if we look at the base, we've got this. That is not dust. That is actually pitting. So I don't know what's gone on with this. But, well, we'll investigate. It's all good fun, isn't it? So the glue's all dried, and all that together, and much, much better. So I'm pleased with how that's gone. And I suppose let's put this back together and move on to the next bit. So interestingly, this is a fairly late HF100. This doesn't have the Sony caps in it, which is actually a really good thing. Probably the rest of these are going to be okay. There's no board browning I can see under any of these, which is a bonus. Yeah, I can't see anything suspect. So I'd like to think this board will be fine. So I suppose let's get it back together. I think what I'm going to do before I do the power supply is fire it up, and we'll give it a test and just see if there are any other issues with it. Okay, so I've sort of put it back together and just giving it a test, and I'm glad I actually used my blank cassette insofar as I have a real problem. Not a real problem, but a real problem, and that's this. And not only is it noisy, but it's also basically got no real torque. So there's something I've done wrong, something I've not put back properly, or yeah, we've got an idler problem of some description. I don't remember it making that noise when I first tested it, but then there was quite a lot wrong with it at that point, and there's less wrong with it now. So I just wonder if that's another issue. So yeah, let's pull that back out and have a look. So as some of you might have guessed, it is actually the real motor. So, I'm going to have to take this apart and have a look. Now, what's odd about it is it's almost, it's not catching the coils. I don't think. It sounds like a bearing or something similar. So, yeah, and that's sort of, somebody's obviously already had a look. So, this could be fun. So, while checking this motor out, it does seem fine. It looks like the power supply's developed a fault. It occasionally does come on, most of the time it doesn't, and I seriously suspect it's capacitors. So I think it's quite funny because I said I checked the depth before I did the power supply. I really wish I'd just done the power supply now. So let's get that done, get the caps changed. That was in the previous HF100 video, to be fair, so I won't show that. But yeah, that's really quite fun and really weird. Like I say, I mean, sometimes the power supply will start running, but now it pretty much just appears to be dead. So I'm hoping I haven't blown anything. When these do blow, they blow very quietly. You won't get like a pop or anything like that. Usually, they'll just die. So I'm hoping that the two transistors are okay, and yeah, we're not in trouble. But I do have another power supply if we are in trouble, and of course this one would get repaired. It's just a bit difficult to get the right semiconductors for it, but yeah, let's crack on. Okay, so given it a pretty comprehensive recap and placed pretty much all of the ones that are critical and do give problems, so all of the ones on the DC-DC AC board and higher voltage ones for the tuner, and these two bipolar ones, they actually tested a bit leaky and high ESR, as did one of these, which 47 microfarad 350 volts. So yeah, I have changed one of these, but they do actually all check okay, to be fair. Even the one I removed was okay, so I just thought, well, let's leave it. And the two transistors are fine. They're working fine, or test fine anyway. Also did the joints on the bottom of the two transformers. And yeah, I think, I'm hoping that this will now be reliable. It's really nice that it didn't blow itself up. It just literally wasn't getting oscillation. I believe that chip there is responsible for the running of the switch mode power supply, the main side of the switch mode power supply. I did also check these two resistors just in case, and they're fine. So hopefully this will work and be reliable. So we shall see. Okay, so we're all good with the power supply, and in my opinion that display looks brighter, but the motor, now I have greased it, but my goodness, and you can actually feel the vibrations from it. So I'm going to have to try and work out what on earth is going on there. So I've replaced the motor, and it's simple to do. I'm taking it off the donor machine. Just 4 screws, 2, 3, 4. And here's the board, and you can see here these 2 Hall effect devices. This is what I was trying to remember earlier on. These can be used on the head drum motor. So yeah, they're direct replacements. So it's worth noting if you see these, or you have scrap machines or whatever, these will actually replace the Hall effect there, which is what it looks like has happened here. So I had a slight problem. Even after recapping, it was still a bit intermittent. Please don't laugh at this. I'm putting it through my Variac, my variable power supply, and I didn't notice that the plug actually has bent pins, and because of the nature of the variable power supply, the pins aren't that great, and basically it just wasn't making contact. So I put a new plug on, and which I do anyway, but and that's fixed it. So in theory I shouldn't have recapped the power supply, but in practice I needed to do that because some of those caps were really, really bad. So it's no bad thing. So without further ado, is it any better? So I need to press that, and we'll turn it on. And we don't have to worry about pressing that down once it's on. So here we go. Isn't that better? So much better. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll do a separate video on investigating why this is bad. Probably it's going to be either the controller chip or one of these transistors. But we'll see. Wouldn't think one of the coils is open circuit. There's something not happy on this board. So, but yeah, quite interesting. You know, it almost sounds like gear chatter, but it isn't. It's actually the electronics. So, I suppose it's now time to get this back together. Okay, so state of play is fast forward and rewind are great, but and those of you who know these decks may well have already spotted, but let's have a look at what happens when I play. Just spinning out tape everywhere. So ejected the tape, and now it's time to get this deck properly timed. Now you can see here, this hole here should be lined up with the hole through the deck, so it's coming a bit too far back, and also this isn't quite reaching its home, or its parked, or its unloaded position. So what we need to do is take off this motor assembly, take off this assembly down here, line it all up, put it back together, and hopefully we should be cooking with gas. So let's get this undone first, which is pretty much at the end of its... So that is a tight belt. It's like new. Not much play in that at all. Gosh, that is tight. So what I'm going to do is give it a bit more slack. Let's get this over. I don't particularly want to break any lugs. Gosh, that's so tight. Were they really this tight ever? I suppose it must have been. That's in very good order. So two screws out. Get the one out. There we go. Move that. Then two screws rather, on these. And there's actually a cable clip there, which I think I'm going to have to snip. Just to give us the freedom to get this out of the way. Let's get that out. See which is the free end of that. There we go. I thought it was that way. It comes out that way. And that should allow us to quite easily, without disturbing the cabling too much, get that out of the way. It looks fun. Tiny bit of corrosion. That's not a problem. So get these screws out. I do wonder what else we're going to find with this deck, you know. I already know that the Capstan is running super fast, which is probably going to be a transistor issue on the servo board, which of course we've had a look at already, so I'll have to take that apart. What I will do with this is I'll give it a bit of a lubrication as well. It just makes it smoother, really. I quite like these loading smooth. These sound so good. or is it just me? So that's fully unloaded. Holes lined up. And what I will do, I'll do this off camera, I'm just going to clean that up. So giving that a bit of a clean, looking much better. And I've actually put a thin layer of grease on there as well. It's funny how you do see this on some decks where the zinc processing, the anti-rust, doesn't always take very well. And you get like patches that are missed. So yeah, it's quite interesting. Okay, so I've put that back together, and I have just lightly greased all of the gears. When you put this in, you've got to put it in sort of at a bit of an angle, so like so, and then in, like so, and then just make sure that this is fully tensioned when you drop that gear down, so it is actually fully unloaded. The pinch roller assembly will move because obviously it's on a spring, but this needs to be fully right to the end of its travel. And you can see there the hole is pretty much lined up, which is what I'd expect. Clean that bit of tape gunk off. So I suppose now put the motor back in and give it a test. It's all back together, and I've given it a bit of a clean. I can still see a few little bits of tape residue. It seemed to be full of bits of tape, oxide that had dropped off, various tapes. I suppose that's only to be expected. And I've also greased underneath the gear here. I've shown that in another video, how that's done, so I didn't bother showing that. So I suppose see how it's going to go, and I'm not actually that hopeful, but anyway, we'll see. Oh yeah, that's not sure. So the next thing is the Capstan motor, or rather why it's running so fast. Why do I have a feeling I'm going to be digging out the servo board again? But let's just see what it is doing, how fast it's going. So pressing play, and so that's play, that's Q. Yeah, so it's running much faster than it should. It actually looks like it slows down when I press Q. View. Yeah, so this, unlike the F30, this actually does get upset if it doesn't see the reels moving together. So i.e. when it's taking up, the supply reel needs to move as well, so it'll error. And the same in any mode, basically, if it detects that there's no movement. So I suppose the next thing is to check a few voltages. Probably be doing it on this board here, the PT7 board, and just see what voltages are actually there. give a bit of a clue if we need to get to the servo board. My guess is probably it's going to be one of the transistors in the Capstan chain, sort of from between the chip and this board, the PT7 board. So one of those has probably gone short. So we'll see. I just hope I can find some transistors if that is the case. But yeah, let's measure some voltages. So I've printed out the part of the circuit diagram from the manual with the PT7 board on and the voltages. And having checked the Q002, which is the Capstan transistor driver, it should have about 1.8 volts on the base, and it's actually got about 4.5 volts. So that means we have got a problem on that servo board. So unfortunately we're going to have to take that back out and access it. My bet is one of those transistors is going to be dodgy again, just like on Russell's HF100. So I suppose we better gain access to it and crack on. So here we go again. Covered this in a previous video where we're getting problems with the Capstan running fast intermittently. Well, in this case it's running fast all the time, and basically it'll probably, I'm hoping, be one of the transistors either down here, I seem to remember. I think there's a couple of others as well dotted around this general area anyway. Will probably be leaky. It might even test fine, but it will be leaky, and it'll be basically putting 4.5-ish volts on the line to the Capstan that regulates speed, when it should be about 1.8 volts. So it's a matter of working from the start of the circuit. Let's have a look here. Start of the circuit, which is somewhere here. And just working through, seeing where the voltage is incorrect. I would assume this is probably going to be fine. And there will be somewhere, can't remember exactly where, possibly here. This line here, I could be wrong. Yeah, no, it is here. This will be really low because the Capstan circuitry for the FG, the speed control, will be desperately trying to lower the voltage to get it back within the correct speed. So all of these voltages are probably going to be low, and it's just finding out where the voltage is suddenly high across these transistors and these down here as well. I think, from memory, this part of this circuit anyway, if not all of it, this is just to ensure a smooth transition between cue and review and play, and it's sort of almost like it puts a dampening brake on the Capstan momentarily, and then gets it to the right speed really quickly. I think that seems to be how it reacts anyway, from what I remember from doing Russell's machine. Yeah, so you can see here, this line here comes down to here, and this is basically the dampening circuit. So 12 volts there, 6 volts in, I think that's play mode maybe. Let's have a look. So, oh, light's causing problems. Q. So that's Q. So yeah, so that line there, I should be going up really to be technically correct there, is like the Q review damping. So yes, anyway, enough chitter chatter, let's get going. Okay, so it's working. It does need some video alignment. It's grainy and the colour's a bit odd. I don't know what's going on there, but I think fingers have been fiddling. Sort of the Capstan issue. I went right the way through the circuit, and basically there was 5 volts full on right away from the IC306 output of that, and that made me think, ooh, is there something actually wrong with the Capstan itself, Capstan motor? And so I had a spare, so I put that on, and it worked absolutely fine. Took the old one out, and I don't know if you can see this. But the Hall effects have been changed. Really badly done. It's a real bodge job. So no wonder it wasn't working. I mean, I should have looked, but it's one of those things that when you're actually working on a machine and somebody else has been messing about with it, you don't always see this unless they tell you. And that's what really annoyed me with the seller. He just was not honest. So very upsetting. The other thing as well is the VU meters, as you can see, are broken. Always good fun, so I'll have to fix those. That's a nice hour of my life gone. Swapping out those SMDs, but it's not so bad on an HF100. They're not as tiny as the ones on the HF950, but it's one thing after another. But we are nearly there, and I'm fairly happy with the result. The picture is grainy. It's not ideal, but I do think that a realignment of the signal board will get this going. So yeah, we sort of got there, and obviously I'm not going to cover the VU meters. I've done that in another video. So yes, but so there we go. We sort of made it. We reached the end, and my goodness, what a lot of problems this machine had. So with that, thank you very much for watching, and please subscribe, and look forward to seeing you in another video. Take care for now. Bye. New VU meter LEDs. Fantastic.